Good evening, everybody. We are at the Conservation Community Facebook pages from the PATT Foundation. And today we are lucky enough to have with us Andy Steele, the founder of PATT Foundation. That's going to showcase us and explain us what's going on with the Conservation Community project. And he's in Bangkok. And actually, Bangkok is tomorrow, Friday, 10 a.m. And we are here in Toronto with also our friend Sandra Lee Lester, architectural interventionalist and an ecologist as well. So I will get online right now. Our friend, that would be Sandra, I think, from Toronto. Here we are. Hey, Sandra, how you doing?
Hey, Stefan. How are you?
Yeah, thank you for joining us for this first multi-cast broadcast with Facebook Live for the Conservation Community Project with PATT Foundation. And if we were lucky, we're gonna reach out to Bangkok, Thailand, with PATT Foundation's founder, Mr. Andy J. Steele. Hey, Andy.
Hi, Stefan.
Welcome online on the Conservation Community Project Facebook Live. So, Andy.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, Andy, you already know Sandra for sure from Toronto, Canada. And today, so you're in Bangkok, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Quite a long way from you guys.
Yeah.
The temperature might be a little bit.
Yes. I will exchange my -22 with any time your temperature in Thailand.
Okay.
If you need me to wipe and swipe the white sand, in Thailand from the white beaches, no problem. After that, I'm really tired of shoveling snow here. Right. So today we're going to talk about a great project of yours.
There's not only white sand.
I think we lost him a bit.
Yeah, because actually, we're in Thailand, and that's a long way from where we stream in North America. Okay, you're back.
He's freezing up a little bit, but
yes,
hopefully we'll get him back.
Yeah, it's all about also the upload bandwidth. So maybe I'm gonna get off the signal. It would probably make easy the bandwidth. Let's see if it works. Otherwise, I come back.
Okay, no, it should be fine, guys. I can hear you. It's just a slight delay. It's a bit like the old satellite.
Did we lose him?
I think.
It depends on how strong his Wi-Fi or internet connection is over there.
It's probably in the garden with the Wi-Fi. So probably Doy Buller from Australia is going to join us. Meanwhile, our friend Andy is trying to connect back.
Hi, Sandra. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Sorry to disappoint. I'm on Australian, but not with an Australian accent. So,
so today we're with Andy Steele from the PATT Foundation. I think he's trying to connect with us.
Yeah,
he
I had that same experience earlier.
Yeah, he probably had issue with the bandwidth, or because whether you're using 4G, 3G, from your cell phone. He's using his laptop, I guess, so that would be Wi-Fi. Now, depending of the distance where you're from your router, you got a good signal or you don't, and that happens.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I had a guest on earlier, Sandra, and her connection dropped out. So there was just the two of us. So I'm trying to pick up. And Stefan did. I want to thank you live on air. Stefan did an absolutely remarkable job and started asking me questions. So thank you so much for doing that.
You're welcome. I'm here for that.
Yeah. No, that was really cool. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of stuck. It's like, well, what do we do? What can we talk about? So I mean, obviously continue on.
Yeah, sure. So today we were gathering for Andy Steele. So Andy Steele is the founder of the PATT Foundation, Plan to Treat. So basically, what he does is organizing charity called the PATT Foundation. That was based in UK and it moved to Thailand, Bangkok, because this is where the action takes place. Most of the actions and the operations are taking in South Asia to protect the ecosystems, and especially focus on one great issue that we have here on the planet is the deforestation. It's really an issue. People are not conscious about that. We got some presidents saying, "Oh, it's a hoax." Well, I'm not sure it's a hoax. I'm not sure at all.
They deforest a lot due to palm oil.
Yes.
There's a lot of palm oil plantations. So they're burning the forest and planting palm oil.
Yeah. And actually, Andy is leading actions with a series of partners. Last time I reviewed, what were the initiatives. I think he had 18 current initiatives on portfolio with different stakeholders. The one we recently saw on PATT Foundation pages on Facebook, as well as conservation community Facebook page, is the Hornbill project that happened in Chiang Mai in Thailand. And we'll get next episodes of those series. We're starting with conservation community Facebook Lives. We're going to get the chance to speak actually with the project holders. So there is, some coordination and an organization. And for that, I thank Andy for his dedication all over the planet, especially in South Asia, because it has to start from somewhere to inspire others to do some good things for the planet. And so if we're lucky, today we will have the chance to get him back. I think he is. He's coming back. One great thing with Andy, he never gives up.
That's true.
I call him the man of steel. The man of steel. But actually, his family name is Steel, so it's like a French back joke. Yeah, but you're gonna get used with that. That's with us. And I think it's quite important not to be only activist, but also to use what technology and progress brought on the table, to use it not only for marketing purposes or business purposes, but if you are looking for getting some results, there is no way that you can avoid techniques that are used by technologies or marketers to get the word out and to have some behaviors that are good reactions, such as donation. And it's not only about donating, it's also participating. And the first participation that anyone can do is into the affinity propagation, which is in fact tell the word what you know, what you're passionate about, engage with others, and tell your neighbor, tell your brother, tell a stranger that something is occurring here and there, and at some point, you will, will you be rewarded? Not rewarded in the sense that not God is going to get down to earth and say, "Hey, I'm here and I'm rewarding everybody," but actually, it's a collective conscious that is happening, and then people start to change behaviors. Because actually, if we don't change behaviors, we are just aggravating the situation, which is already under, I would say, scope and alarm. Because actually, everybody is aware that climate change is here, and it's not a hoax. Deforestation. Yeah.
Perhaps
yes,
people don't know exactly what actions they can take on a day-to-day basis in order to make a difference.
Because it seems like a big fight. Sorry, Sandra.
That's okay. I'm just thinking of something small that has to do with deforestation. So, for example, when you go to the supermarket, there's a lot of products on the supermarket shelves that have palm oil in the products. And whenever we buy a product that has palm oil in it and it hasn't been produced sustainably, what we're doing is we're supporting the slash and burn mentality of burning down rainforests and planting palm oil plantations in their place.
So is there guidelines for that sort of thing? Like, how do we know if somebody is doing palm oil sustainably, for example? Because maybe some are.
Yeah, there are some sustainable palm oil products. So you can find them. There's a WWF scorecard.
Oh, okay.
Which shows which companies kept their promises to consumers on palm oil.
Yeah. Because in a country like Costa Rica, which is very, seems to be more of a sustainable country, they do have a lot of palm oil plants and that sort of thing. So I don't know, is that good or bad, or, what do you think? Or are you aware that they have that there? Because I don't think it's a slash and burn. I don't think it's a slash and burn in Costa Rica. What I was saying was that in Costa Rica, they seem to be one of the more sustainable economies in terms of the environment and that sort of thing around the world. Yet they still have, palm oil plantations. So how is that good? I don't know. Is that bad?
I mean,
it depends on how it's created. So there's sustainable palm oil, and then there's not. But the premise of it is that once you have a monoculture and you've cut down all of the rainforest for the planting of a monoculture, it's not very good to do that.
No, I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to reduce the ecological support and diversity in that area.
Yeah.
So I would say it's not great to do monocultures where you're replacing a rainforest.
Yeah.
So it is difficult, because then you start looking at the economy in that country, and how do you support the economy of that country if they're not allowed to deforest like we did?
Yeah,
like in Canada, we deforested.
Yeah,
we have
and we still do,
and we still do, and we do cut down diverse ecological systems and then replant them with monocultures in Canada. In fact, we actually subsidized the forestry industry in our national parks for years. So here we are saying that we're actually going to have these beautiful refuges for appreciating nature, and then we go and we allow logging in them.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. It's actually funny or interesting. I spent some time on Vancouver Island, and flying into the airport, like this is in Comox Valley. So you fly from Victoria up north to Comox, and you can actually see. And then I drove that same route, and up in the air, you can see all the patches of where the trees are missing and where they've been logged. And then when you drive down the highway, they've done it very deceptively. When you're driving down the highway, you look and all you see is trees. So what they've done is they've had the highway, then they have, a band of trees sort of thick enough so that as a driver driving down the highway, all you're seeing is trees, and it's looks
that's
nice,
right.
Nice forest. But as soon as you go into the air, you see that, there's this swath, there's a highway, then there's a swath of trees, maybe 20 meters, 50 meters, and then it's like clear cut. It's like, oh my God, what are you doing?
Similarly in Quebec, I lived for a summer in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region, which is quite a remote area in central Quebec. And it was crazy. We would go on these long hikes, and it was the valley where the movie The Last of the Mohicans was filmed. Okay. So really beautiful, beautiful places. And then we turned the corner and we're like, we didn't want to see that. Oh my God. It's really shocking.
I actually spent a couple years, 3-4 years planting trees. After high school, between high school and uni and that sort of thing. So this was in northern Alberta and northern BC, planting trees. So to me, that was important, obviously, for the work, and but also for what else you can do to kind of help, because it's just horrid out there. Hey, welcome back, Andy.
Sorry about that. I was sat in the garden because you could listen to the birds and everything else, but I don't think the Wi-Fi was strong enough, so I'll come back inside.
Oh, that's okay.
I prefer to be outside.
Yeah, cool.
So sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Stefan linked me in, but I don't know. Please continue what you were talking about.
Well, I think we were talking about the distance between Bangkok and Toronto, and I thought we sounded like we were on a satellite link-up, the old days, where somebody spoke and you waited for the message to get through, and then we came back and got the response.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I wanted to ask you, Andy, about the PATT Foundation. Can you tell me about the background and history of your organization?
Sure. I think it goes back over a decade ago now, actually, to 2005. I was working in the power sector and polluting the atmosphere. And then I moved over to the green industry and realized that part of my work could actually be helping the environment. And I saw a big disconnect. There's a lot of work in conservation, but not so many people were physically putting the trees back. And what happens, you can look at the scenario with a tree. It can take 100 years to grow, but literally 2 minutes to chop a tree down. So what I wanted to do and set out to achieve was a target to plant 1 million trees, and we're close to that, planting 1 million trees in Asia, to put the trees back. And what I did was connect with various universities, for example, Chiang Mai University in Thailand and Dr. Stephen Elliott, and we worked on what's called framework species restoration, which is a way where you bring certain trees that produce seeds that attract seed dispersing animals and mammals. And when you put 30 trees into a project, ultimately in 6 years' time, you have 90 trees. So the birds and the mammals have ingested those seeds and brought new species back into the location. But that also conversely means that they've taken seeds out and planted them elsewhere. So nature is planting those trees for us. So whilst we're close to planting 1 million trees within our projects, I'm hoping that the ones we can't count, we know that there's a significant number outside. So we've been ongoing with the work with PATT on reforestation, and that will continue. And I hope very soon we can surpass that 1 million tree target.
Wow. So what does
Fabulous.
PATT stand for then?
PATT stands for Plant a Tree Today. It's a very simple concept. Go out there. If everybody plants a tree, then it's like throwing a stone in the ocean. But if everybody throws a stone, we create the tidal wave.
Yeah, I was earlier. That's a fantastic mission. I was actually telling Sandra earlier, while we were filling the air, that I spent a number of years in the forest in northern Alberta in Canada and northern BC in Canada, planting trees for sort of a summer job. So, I was planting on good days about 3,000 trees a day, for a couple weeks on end. So I feel pretty proud of that. And that was a while ago.
Try that in the heat in Asia, though. It's a little bit more challenging, that's for sure. But that guys, what you say about people planting trees? Sorry, that's my in-house security system. My dog.
It's been activated.
He's a good guard dog. So basically, one of the things that from the follow-up of just planting trees, we started an environmental education system, and we set up a nursery in Khao Yai, which is one of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. It's a national park inside Thailand. And it's to get kids out into the field and get their hands dirty and plant. It happened. What resonated with me was one of our early sponsors was a company called Syngenta, and the Thailand CEO had said he planted a tree in his nursery school. And when he goes back home to Australia, he literally goes to see how his tree is going, Mm-hmm. So what we did was same thing, get the kids to plant a tree, and there's numerous messages you write on the potting bag, to dad, etc. And people remember that. And we've had 10,000 children pass through that nursery in Khao Yai. So you can imagine the number of trees that have been planted by the kids and the community, and people remember it. And, when they grow older, I hope they go back and visit the site and see the trees that they planted.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I would love to go back to where I planted some of my trees and see what it looks like today. Hopefully they haven't cut them all down again.
Mm-hmm.
So
go
ahead.
One of the things that I've got to do, I think, over the coming years is go back, because we've been active now for 12 years in Thailand, is go back to some of the original projects and see where they're at. We did a huge project with the Six Senses Foundation and Hotel Group in the northern part of Thailand. We were planting trees on a manganite mine. That's never been done. So we wanted to prove that we can plant trees in locations that can't work. So I'm hoping to go back. But we had 200 villagers engaged on that project every day.
Wow.
As an amazing project. Yeah. But, you can't walk up the mountain every day. So we had to ship 200 villagers in, get them to the top of the hill, and then work. So to get back up there, it's going to take me a bit of a challenge, but I don't mind hiking. But then you come back to the things that people don't think about when you're doing a reforestation project. Communities in Thailand, they don't necessarily have bank accounts, and we can't have an automated payroll. So you've got to pay these guys every day on the nose. So you then got guys running out to the bank to withdraw the cash to get to the top of the hill to make sure that the villagers get paid, because if they don't get paid, they don't turn up the next day, Challenges that you would never think about. And we learned so much doing that project. But the heartwarming thing is the community does understand that what they were doing was beneficial for the environment. Because when you get comments from villagers saying, we used to hear the birds, and now the trees have gone, and we don't hear the birds so much now. They don't connect climate change and deforestation. They don't necessarily have access to the media that we have. But when you hear it on the ground, it really does resonate, and you realize the value of the work that you're doing, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. So in planting all these trees, how do you, like, that's from the people perspective, but how do you sort of prevent those trees from getting cut down again kind of behind you as you kind of plant these? Because I can, see that as a potential downfall, not downfall, but because not everybody is in on the same message, basically, in my mind.
Totally, and it's a very, very valid point. One of the things that PATT has focused on with its reforestation efforts is to plant trees within national parks or plant trees within community forests that are protected, and therefore they will not be chopped down. If we just planted on a field in the middle of nowhere owned by Joe Bloggs, then of course, if there's commercial value at some point in the future, that individual may take those trees out. So that's one of the things that we focused on: pure reforestation, not necessarily any commercial value, for the ecosystem benefits. I think one of the things that we'll probably get into talking about later is fundraising. But one of the challenges that I've found is that ongoing sustainable funds to run an organization, to do what we do, is difficult. And if in hindsight, I wish we'd have balanced out a fair bit of pure reforestation along with some commercial work with some communities. For example, if we'd have planted rubber trees with a community and funded it, we could have profit shared, and that could bring revenue back in to the organization. I think people forget that NGOs, the work they do is so important, yet people forget charity does, of course, is charitable, but people still need to eat and work. And there's a big disconnect here, and why we don't see people from industry necessarily working in the NGO sector, because they can't get the salary basis that they would attain if they work for one of the large blue chip companies, you know? So, and what I see is as people get to, say, mid-40s and beyond, where they have, I think, got fed up with the commercial and corporate rat race, people then do step out to do their own thing, not necessarily work for the UN or WWF, but they start to do their own projects. And that's what I want to tap into at a later point with the conservation community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah. Excellent. And so how do you, like, where are you along the journey then, Andy? Like 1 million trees, I'm not sure if you said that earlier, but 1 million trees is an awful lot. And where are you, and how long do you think it's going to take you to get there?
Oh, well, what I'm seeing now is that the work that the PATT Foundation does is still very, very important, and we can't lose the focus on the tree planting. Because of the benefits that the forest brings, not only to us as individuals with the oxygen we breathe and the toxins that trees can remove from the environment, but also the trees can provide economic benefits to the communities that are surrounding those forests. And that's fantastic, because the community will protect that forest if they are getting an economic benefit from it. But what I saw, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, is lots of people stepping out to do good things and in the conservation sector. And the challenge, as I've found, has been that the fundraising is always the difficult part. And if you are on the ground trying to run a project, your direction is looking at the project and managing the project. But unfortunately, you've got to have one eye over here looking at the fundraising aspects. And then when the fundraising dries up, you spend more time trying to focus on fundraising than the actual project. Yeah. So that's where the conservation community came in. I saw that disconnect. And what actually happened, conservation community was a brainchild of a gentleman in the UK called Shailesh Patel, through an organization called Healthy Planet. Now, for various reasons, Healthy Planet have gone into administration, And I knew Shailesh, and I could see what he was trying to do. And I said, look, let me take this project under Pat's wing and find the right partners, because I'm a true believer in destiny and everything happens for a reason. And then I had a very interesting chat with Nathaniel Schooler, who introduced me to Stefan Matral. And what's happened there is really the account-based marketing systems that the guys run will go into full top flight soon and allow me to focus on the project work, while the guys on the back end can focus on getting the message out there through social media, which isn't my forte. My forte is projects and trees. And that allows the funding to funnel in. And I know so many people over the last decade that are working on projects that need that assistance. And from huge projects, there's Dr. Ian Singleton he's in Sumatra working on the Sumatra Orangutan Conservation Project. There's my friends with Wildlife One in the north of Thailand on the Hornbill project. That's Adam Oswell and Demis Gali. All of these guys are really wanting and have got some amazing projects, but don't have the funding to get them moving.
Yeah,
so
no, for sure, it's a big issue. Yeah. So how do we how do you engage your community like around the world? How do we, because we were talking with Sandra earlier and she said, sometimes it's that first step that we have no idea what to take or how to take it. Like, what do you suggest for, people around the world? Where do we start? Like, what do you want us to do?
Well, we will get to a point of launching our own conservation community platform in the coming weeks, conservation.community. And essentially what I'm looking to do with the guys, Stefan and Nathaniel and the rest of the team, build a green Facebook, where people from the conservation network are able to interact. Now, we're not going to get there overnight. So what we've got to do is start by ticking off a few projects and raising funds for those projects. I spoke about seed dispersal earlier, and I recently visited Chiang Mai to see the Hornbill project in Mae Kampong. Amazing project where they're going to release breeding pairs of great hornbills and oriental pied hornbills. And what you find is that the great hornbill, because it's quite a large bird, can ingest the larger seeds. Now, the seed germination success rate is a lot higher if an animal has ingested that seed. So that with the hornbill flying around in all of these locations, we're going to get the bigger trees spread around instead of just the little ones.
That's
so
funny.
It's actually getting that sort of information that your average guy on the street doesn't have access to, that getting to ground and talking to the projects, using Facebook Live, using video footage to show people what's going on. And the conversations I have are just, I'm not a forester, and I'm just a guy with a big heart that is concerned about the environment. And I'm fascinated about the stories that and the conversations that I have with these guys, and I learn so much. And that's knowledge that we need to share with everybody. And with modern technology, we can do that. We can hook people in to the locations I go and say, wow, look at this. I mean, I was dodging pit vipers in the forest last week, and Demis goes in the forest and takes pictures of them at night. And that's those sort of things that I think Stefan called me, the green Indiana Jones sort of thing. But that's what I want to share and raise awareness of what all these guys are doing and help them achieve their conservation objectives. And the only way to do that is to direct funding to it. And that happens by raising awareness and getting the message out there.
Yeah. And you can put on a nice hat and get a whip and you'd be just like Indiana Jones, right?
You're not wrong. It's, like I say, it's fascinating. And one of the things that I'm looking to do initially is work with people I know that have been involved in the industry for a long time, people with a good reputation. Dr. Ian Singleton, I've mentioned already. My phone's talking to me. Dr. Ian Redmond also works extensively on gorilla conservation in Africa. Now, Dr. Ian Redmond and Dr. Ian Singleton, the connection there is we're all from the same city in the you probably won't know where that is, but if you follow the football in the UK, it's Kingston upon Hull. That's how we're all from the same city. So you've got 3 guys in different locations around the world working in conservation and protection of the environment, etc. And we set a challenge a few years ago. We climbed Kilimanjaro to raise awareness on the environmental issues that we see, because the glaciers on top of Kilimanjaro are melting, and we wanted to get there and say, right, okay, we'll climb this mountain as a fundraising exercise for the various organizations we're involved with, but to also showcase the melting of the glaciers, and not only that, how it affects the. Oh, cool! Well, there's a documentary we've done that we will release about the whole trip, and it talks about the communities that actually survive on the water flow from the glaciers. And when the glaciers go, these guys are going to really struggle in, you know. So, but Ian Redmond, apart from doing a lot of work with BBC, has been involved extensively with gorilla conservation in various countries in Africa, mainly the Congo, and a few other areas. Now, Ian's been working for so long in this area, and his projects need constantly on the talk show scenario. He's all giving talks at events around the world to raise awareness and to raise funds. Now, Ian's a lovely fella. Ian's a different generation to us. He's not in the digital ecosystem. He's old school, you know, like used to write a check and things like that, and go to the bank. Whereas what you've got with the modern day era is we have this technology available to us, so let's use it to get this message out. And instead of talking to 400 people in a room, let's talk to 400,000 people at one time and get them to commit $1. And then, geez, how much can we do with that? What can we do to help the environment and the wildlife and biodiversity that lives in it?
And isn't part of the problem all of this flying around and creating more carbon footprint instead of actually doing something?
You are right, and it's a bit of a devil's advocate there, Sandra. It's a necessary evil at sometimes, you know, to actually to fly somewhere, unfortunately. But my view is, if people do take this issue and plant trees, it's very simple. A short haul flight, plant 1 tree. Medium haul, plant 2 trees. Long haul, plant 3 trees. If it's a return flight, make sure you plant the trees. Now, a lot of the airlines are offering that facility. Now, they're not necessarily planting trees. They are working in the carbon market space and buying certified emission reductions, which is another completely different industry in itself. And in my view is, let's focus on the trees, because yes, we can reduce emission reductions by using renewable energy, and that's fine. It's a very commendable act. But our view is, let's look at the biodiversity, the wildlife factors, and the communities that are around there. Because if we keep chopping the forest down, this is where we get conflict between villagers and elephants. The elephants go foraging for food and encroach on the village community, which causes problems. And then people then will have an issue with that scenario, because the elephant's natural habitat, not just the elephant, lots of other animals as well, is diminishing, and they've got to go looking for food.
The elephants don't know where to go else.
That's right, and it's a problem. So as long as we are conserving these areas and putting the trees back, and hopefully eventually expanding those areas, then we start to bring the natural habitat back for these animals. What I see, you know, the world is developing at an awesome pace, and we will run into issues when we hit 9 billion people by 2050 with the amounts of food that we need to produce. And development is seeing that people are chopping down the forest. The oil palm industry is a huge, huge issue, because of the use of oil palm in so many different things, whether it's from soap to shampoos to food-based elements to biofuel. And the demand is so high that we have to also educate people to change their habitat, which will slow down, hopefully, the usage of this product and those companies that are decimating the prime forest. When
people are going shopping in the grocery store, should they avoid products with palm oil?
I don't think I can give you an accurate answer on that if you can avoid it. Let's go back. The reality is yes. If they are 100% hard-nosed activists, then if you can find an alternative product, the answer is yes. The problem we see in today's society, Sandra, is everybody's looking at the pound or the dollar. How much these things cost, and unfortunately, you go to various supermarkets, and the cost-effective products are cheaper than because they contain these products. If you want something that doesn't contain the products that we talk about, you're going to pay a higher price, and not everybody can afford to do that, unfortunately. But it is about raising awareness and trying to make those choices. And you are perfectly right.
Yeah, because as you said, Andy, a lot of it does come down to the dollar, because you have a family, you have to pay for stuff, all that kind of stuff. So there's obviously an economy here all the time. So, can you do that sustainably? Can you have a business with palm oil that treats the environment properly, developing it and getting it going and that sort of thing? And I was talking with this earlier with Sandra, was that in Costa Rica, they do that. There's a lot of palm oil facilities, or plantations, but I would expect that they've been there for a while. And given Costa Rica's record, and maybe you can confirm or deny this, but given their record of sustainability and ecocultures and that sort of thing, are they doing the right thing here, or are they just kind of adding to the problem? Sorry, did I cut out?
A little bit, yes. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I think I got the crux of the question was, are they doing the right thing sustainably? You've got to take each individual company and project on its own merit. There are good companies out there. There are bad companies. And let's be honest, most companies are operating for shareholder benefit. So they're trying to drive profitability and not always concerned about the sustainability factor. Now, I think that there is a paradigm shift where people are starting to, as a consumer, look at the products and the sustainable element, and that's putting slight pressure on the companies to do things. But it's in my opinion, it's not enough. These companies can do a lot more. They are making millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, from their business, and they don't necessarily put a huge percentage back into the environment or the areas that they are damaging. One of the things I am talking to one project in Costa Rica that wants to look at reforestation. So when we get the platform launched, I'm hoping we can invite those guys on to a talk show like this to get their opinion on the actual position in Costa Rica. But one of the things that I see at the moment, Indonesia and Malaysia are two of the big ecosystem hotspots, certainly in Asia, and the governments are making so much money, particularly from oil palm, from the taxes of those companies that produce oil palm, that they don't necessarily have a huge drive to protect those forests, and that's such a shame. And I understand that those countries want to develop, and they see this as a huge revenue stream. But I'm flagging this now that you're going to see the same thing coming up in Africa, which is such a shame. The companies are going to go in, and heads of African states are going to sign off huge tracts of land to give to the palm oil companies. And those palm oil companies will take the natural forest out, sell the high-value timber, and plant oil palm. And the ramifications of that are huge. And one of the things that I think, as we're starting to understand plant-based science and other elements, is that a lot of the cures to natural illnesses in the world can potentially come from the forest. And I don't think we fully understand this yet. So if we take the forest out, then we may lose some of the cures to some of the major illnesses in the world. You know, it's a real shame. And like I say, my view is put the trees back, but under conservation community, it's not just the forest. There are various different species, biodiversity elements. You know, I was talking to the guys in Wildlife One, the tiger population in northern Thailand. People didn't think there were tigers there. It is actually increasing. They have 250 tigers in one of the reserves that goes into Burma. Yeah, and you know, people thought tigers were not there. Now, unfortunately, that brings up another aspect, which is traditional Chinese medicine. How, you know, the education is slowly stopping the use of some of those animals in traditional Chinese medicine. But when you've got 1.3 billion people that believe in various animal parts are going to make them superhuman, like the blood of a cobra, if they drink it after it's agitated, it's going to make them have more virality. You know, there starts to be problems. That's where we have to put focus on these areas. One of the distressing projects I've come across was actually bears being kept in crush cages. And one of this is terrible. Literally a 1 meter square cage where bears are kept in them, and they have a tube inserted into them so that they can drain the bile. And when the bear gets agitated, they drain this bile, and certain Chinese people are believing that gives them certain power. It's cruel, horrible. Now these bears are kept, they're bred in captivity because there's an industry. This is in Burma and Laos. And when you see the bears, that because they're in a 1 meter cage, they're having dementia. They're rubbing their heads against the bars, and they're causing sores and calluses on their heads. And what happens now? They're filing the calluses off because they now believe that has some form of superpower. You know, it's crazy. So there's another lady I've got to follow up with the name. She has been rescuing a lot of these bears, but then she rescues them, but then comes the next problem. Certainly from an animal cruelty point of view, they rescue them, but these bears can't be released into the wild. They can't fend for themselves. So you need a sanctuary, and a bear eats a lot of food, and you need the location. So that sanctuary needs funding. And you start to see the disconnect. It's not just the Chinese medicine, it's the whole chain all the way down. And then, okay, you rescue the animals, then those guys need funding to feed those poor animals. They're saved from the cruel environment they're in, but we need to make sure that they're going to live out the rest of their years in a comfortable environment. So coming back to conservation community, there's so many aspects, and we've only spoken about the forest. And animals. I was
going to say that. Like, it seems like there's so many other areas, and it's a matter of, I guess, cutting or finding that piece of the piece that you can kind of attack and you can kind of deal with.
Well, that's it. That's it, Darla. What we want to achieve with conservation community is actually getting all aspects together, and people have an affinity with a certain aspect, and there's certainly from my point of view, look, let's be honest, fundraising for trees, unless you understand the benefit of a tree and what it does, it's difficult. You know, people, unless you're a hard-nosed environmentalist, you understand what benefit the tree does, then you'll support those projects. But people donate money to projects that are close to their heart and endearing, and you find that, you know, lions and tigers and bears, they're the exciting ones, and people will donate to protect them. And certainly children who experience hunger and poverty. So, you know,
we've started valuing trees here in Toronto, Andy. So there's a tree valuation project. You can actually walk through a city park, and there's signs on each tree saying, this tree is valued at so many thousands of dollars, and this is what it does for the ecosystem in terms of metabolizing CO2 and part of the affecting the water system and the whole water cycle, all kinds of different benefits. Evapotranspiration during the summer, cooling the city during the summer.
That's great news then.
What I get as someone who works in the built environment project is resistance around diversity in the landscape. So when you're looking at a previously developed site and you're looking at restoring an ecosystem, a lot of our landscape architects aren't very well versed on how to restore the site with native and adaptive species so that you're replanting and reestablishing an ecosystem, whether it's a prairie system, and allowing for that evolution to take place back to established forest. So how do we get more knowledge out in terms of helping our landscape architects with reforestation and regeneration efforts?
Can you repeat that again, Sandra? How do we get
more knowledge to our landscape architects in the cities about how they have opportunities for reforestation?
I think looking forward, one of the things in the future is to try and connect these people with the various universities that are doing this sort of research work. There's a lot of universities around the world that are focusing on these different aspects, and they're a wealth of knowledge. And you've got students and professors working in this area. I think they'd be happy to share their knowledge and connect. And that's one of the things that hopefully we can do with the conservation community is connect all of these people under one area as we evolve. Yeah, for sure. There's so many universities around that. In Malaysia, there's tropical Asia. There's FRIM. I can't remember the exact name for FRIM, but one in Malaysia has a huge forestry undergrad program. So they have a lot of work and knowledge in this region. If you go into Holland, in Groningen in northern Holland, there's another well-respected university there that deals in reforestation, particularly experts, teak, etc. But I think they've done projects on cities and what can be introduced to cities. You see, that brings up another aspect. You have to be careful on what trees you plant and try and maintain the indigenous trees. If you bring other species from overseas, you potentially create an invasive species. So it does need some expertise on this to make sure that we don't do the wrong thing. But bringing trees back into
we have a whole raft of Norway maples in Toronto that have been the bane of our existence. They grow fast and big, and then they drop all their branches all at once. So they were a big thing, probably about a century ago in our suburbs, and now they're just starting to drop like flies. So you have to be really careful to make sure that you plant something that is going to be there, especially with future climate. Like I've talked to manufacturers and suppliers, and they purport that their carpet is carbon neutral because they have these established forests. And I keep asking them a little bit difficult questions like, what is your forest? How is your forest going to perform in 20 years when the climate has changed? How is your forest going to perform in 40 years when the climate has changed? So we've already got a certain amount of change in our climate that's locked in because of the CO2 levels that we have in the atmosphere. They aren't coming out anytime soon. So how is that affecting the forests around the world? Not only just melting the snow caps of Mount Kilimanjaro, but they're also changing the forest. And we've been told here in Ontario that we perhaps might not have the capacity to produce maple syrup in 20 or 30 years, because we're going to have the same climate as Kentucky.
Okay, that's going to be an issue for you guys then.
Yeah.
But you're right. These things need to be addressed, and unfortunately, from an NGO or commercial standpoint, I don't think that people have the time or resources to do that. And maybe those questions need to be posed to the universities. And the way that people can assist is to fund those sorts of research projects. And the funding should come from the end, not necessarily the end user, the producer. Like, as you say, you've spoken to various people about the long-term effects of that potentially on the reforestation efforts. And maybe those guys should have some concern and fund the research for under a university project to try and find out. Unfortunately, it's always an issue, isn't it? They've done something good, but you are perfectly right in saying 20 to 40 years' time, the work could be in vain. So it's a bit of an awareness that we've got. But I think one of the things what we've got to do is raise awareness of these issues, and let's use a platform like Conservation Community to get the message out there and raise these issues and people into that, And one of the things that we need to do, we're starting 2018, is get people to like our page and share our projects, our initiatives, get the message out there so that we, as a community, it's not just myself as one person, it's the collective masses that can actually have a positive impact on the environment and conservation at large.
So I would like to know, as a member of a neighborhood community, I was a community leader for Project Neutral for quite a few years, and we had people in our community do a carbon survey and figure out how many tons of carbon they used every year annually. And then they sometimes had an opportunity to invest in conservation efforts or carbon offsets. And I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity to make a link between somebody's personal activities that they do from day to day and investing in the Plant a Tree Foundation?
Definitely. I've got to cast my mind back now to some figures, but I think a couple of my guys did a study on this a long time ago now, going back maybe 10 years. The average individual, I think, emits around 13 tons to 15 tons of CO2 per year.
Yeah. Metric tons, right?
Yeah, roughly. Don't quote me on that, because I might be out. But
no, it sounds about accurate. Yeah, we have an average calculated for our neighborhood, actually.
Okay.
So we'll have to compare notes and see what that looks like.
But if you pull that back into trees, and we had to pick a species which was not necessarily fast going, but one that was going to stay in the forest for a long time. So I remember the guys modeled it on teak, and a teak tree removes 800 kilograms of carbon dioxide per year. So what you find in the early years of the tree growth, because it's growing quick, it reduces more. But that's right. You average it out over 40 years, and the trees are going to stay longer than 40 years. We came up with the calculation of 800 kilograms a year. So you basically, I don't have a calculator, but you 800 kilograms multiplied by your annual carbon footprint, then you get you the number of trees that you need to plant per year to offset just your basic elements. And that didn't, I think that was just an average figure. I don't think it necessarily included your mileage in your car, which is a variable, how big your car is, or it didn't include flights. So look, the reality is yes, the link to PATT, we want to plant trees. So any funding that goes towards supporting reforestation efforts will remove the carbon dioxide. But as I say, PATT is only one element in the conservation community. There's so many different aspects that we've got to raise the consciousness of individuals to support these projects and give them a platform to do that. You know, bring everybody into one area. And, you know, the one of the things that I see, just going back to my recent visit to Chiang Mai, that those guys are pioneering. There's been a few hornbill projects releasing birds back into the wild from captivity, but they're looking at, rather than using huge, let's call them huge aviaries, because at the end of the day, hornbills need about 15 to 20 feet to take off. So they need a large area.
Oh, wow.
So the discussions we've been having are, okay, well, we don't want to contain these birds in one location, but we want to make sure they come back, because once they breed in a location, they will always come back to that location. So how do we do it? Which is then using smaller semi-enclosed cages that allow, with the food and the nesting box in one location. So when the hornbill mates, it mates for life. It picks a mate and it stays with that mate forever. So what we're aiming to do is, instead of one large enclosure, is put a small semi-enclosed structure in place and put those birds back. Now, this is pioneering. I don't think this has been done anywhere. So the Khao Kiao Zoo will release a couple of mating pairs, and that will be the pilot for this project. Build some structures, make sure that they have food so they come back to that area. But if they leave the area, okay, doesn't matter. The intention is to put GPS tracking on the birds so that we can see where they go. And if they find on another mountain a whole lot of very juicy fig trees, then the population will establish itself there. But the objective is achieved. The hornbill isn't flying around so much in Asia. The reduced population, it's now an endangered species. And in certain countries, I think one of the species of hornbill is hunted for its beak, because they make carvings out of the beak that they can sell. We want to make sure that we reintroduce the population, but also educate the communities that, look, the birds that we release will have GPS tracking. So anything happens to these birds, we know what's going on. We know somebody's up to no good. So hand in hand with our conservation efforts is an education element, where we need to make sure the communities realize that, look, you can generate income from other forms, not from taking animals from the forest, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's right. And I think that's a beautiful way of using a leverage point in a system in order to propagate or self-propagate and reforest. You're really looking at making a small amount of effort, and then that spiraling in effect, and then all of a sudden you're getting something that's very naturalized, and using the whole flow and process of the system.
Let's Stefan spoke about the fact he's used to clearing snow from his driveway. What my intention here is to start that snowball at the top of the hill and then roll it down with the efforts from everybody else. And when we get to the bottom, we've got the huge snowman. You know, let's build the snowman. Right. Yes. But that's a concerted effort from everybody, not just myself. And it takes everybody to get involved and support the projects that are dear to their hearts. You know, find something they've got an affinity to. Now, I'm going to focus on hornbills a little bit more, just because that's the project that's front and center. But from a technology point of view, Stefan, you know, the guys are talking about fitting cameras inside the nesting boxes. Now, how cool is this? That what happens, the female hornbill seals herself into the nesting box so that the predators, the pythons or the jackals or any form of the animal can't come and eat the eggs. And then she can literally only get her beak out, and hubby, his role is to go and feed the family. Now, how cool is it with the technology we've got that we can now put cameras inside those nesting boxes and a 24-hour live feed? So now that doesn't resonate with everybody, but the bird watchers around the world, that's something that they would love to support and love to see, and they would never get access to that. So let's connect the world using technology to these amazing projects.
Yeah, I think we can't get everybody with the same passions on a topic, but if you got like maybe 20,000 to 100K people passionate about something, and they have the resources, the will, and I would say, how do you call that? The noble heart to act and behave. No, it just takes two, a team of two, and then a team of three, and then the next day you walk up and then you go, oh my God, 100 million bottles washed upon the shore. I recall that song from a Scottish guy called Sting, I think, and it is that. The challenge is quite simple for consciousness. It's all about a message in a bottle. But we're not alone sending message in a bottle. And when you collect all the bottles and you go back to the grocery and say, can I have 5 cents per bottle? And you have 1 million bottle, you just fundraised something. It's like we must think that everything it takes is someone saying yes. And then the domino theorist and another one saying yes, and I'm going to do something. Not pretend to, but do, actually. And when that starts, it doesn't stop. So having something meaningful, entertaining, a live feed about, you are spending 10 British pounds, $20, 30 euros, whatever, whatever you're contributing to, even those actions like propagating the good word, it's effective. And then it's again numbers, and then it replicates. And at the end of the day, when we are funneling those energy called money and funds to some place, then we can take action. This is why I think we will have the opportunity in some new episodes to develop, what are the criterions that you are, putting in place to select projects. What are the background checking, onboarding processes, how to apply, it goes both sides. People are willing to help, and some people are willing to apply for a new project. I think that's the principle of the conservation community.
Sure, let me answer that question. You are right. As we step out and fundraise using this platform, we can't just give the money to anybody. We've got to make sure the checks and balances are in place to ensure that the funding is utilized.
Traceability.
Now, traceability. As we start out, initially, the intention is to work with established organizations that have a track record. And as I've been working in this sector for over a decade now, I know the viable organizations that I can work with. But as we move forward, I think we've got to make sure that any new project is working through a credible organization or for example, the church network, somebody that has that traceability or accountability. But beyond that, as well as, and go back to financial elements, the know your client side of things, what I'm hoping to do is validate the claims and make sure that people are utilizing the funding to do what they say. Now that is them updating the projects on the community conservation community platform, so we can see live updates of how they're utilizing that funding and the effect it's having. But also, not only our own team will audit projects, but we want to build up a volunteer network of people that are in various locations that can go to ground. And, Sandra quite rightly brings up the carbon footprint. We can't be flying all over the world checking on things, but you do find that somebody will be visiting Surabaya and a project on behalf of conservation community wants to say, well, yeah, let's go and check and make sure everything is as it should be and the funding has been utilized. So we have our own intention to have volunteer community audit these projects, and that's the best way to do it.
Yes, and I think technology can play its role because actually you got some geomarkers that are using open data, but you can also use geo servers to connect with, for example, NASA's satellite to have an overview of what's the situation of a deforestation. And I know I think it's biocarbon engineering in the United States that are using drones to plant trees. Because
and technologies that the access
technology is there, and I think we will have the opportunity to showcase that once or twice for the conservation community project. That's probably going to be exciting for the audience as well for the project managers. And I do think that because it's authentic, a lot of people here on Facebook will relate to that and follow the episodes. And sometimes it's all about having an audience, and the audience become a community. And when the community decided to act, this is where, we are starting smiling and saying, yeah, it's happening, like there is a behavior, there's a movement, and you can't stop that because it's all about goodwill. And I'm pretty excited, to be part of that. I don't think I'm alone to be excited. But it's worth it. It's rewarding, because actually we all live our lives doing something with a career in mind, and we are all stressed out by modern life. But when you are achieving something that goes beyond yourself, you go, wow, I did that not individually, I did that collectively. I love to say that word. I am because we are. It's very true. It's very true.
There's a feel-good factor in all of this, isn't there? And I will quote the words. I think it was David Attenborough said that. How can I look my grandchildren in the eye and say that I know that what's happening to the environment in terms of climate change, and say I did nothing? And it's the same thing. And I think people want to do something. They need a portal by which they can do it. And any contribution, however small, is important. And that liking and sharing doesn't take money. It just takes somebody's time, 2 seconds of someone's time to share what we get our message out to everybody. And then you can look your grandchildren and say, look, I contributed. I did have some effect on saving the planet. And that's what we're trying to do. Let's be honest about it. There's a lot of aspects that we need to look at. There's a lot of moving parts. It takes somebody to have the courage to step up and create the platform, draw a line in the sand and say, okay, let's bring everybody together. Let's bring everybody together to support the planet. And here we are.
and I think it's something exciting to do. And I just want to wrap up on this, that, social good is contagious. And that's the only pandemic we accept on Earth, social good. The only pandemic's worth it is having, something worth doing in community, because that's for the benefits of everybody. And even that, if we don't see the fruit ourselves during our lifetime, our kids and grandchildren, they will benefit from that. And it's about just doing, just believing and acting. 3 simple things. Like, it's not sorcery or rocket science. Take a seed, plant a tree. Come on, let's be serious. If you can go with your shovel and play toys on the beach and build sand castles, you can plant a tree for sure. But do that again and again. Yeah, the school should do that every week.
I agree.
And not only in Thailand, we should do that
everywhere.
New York, Boston, Paris, Barcelona, everywhere.
If you plant 3 trees in your garden in a hot country, it can, over time, have the positive effect of reducing your electricity bill by 10%. So there are economical benefits to tree planting, but tree planting is one factor. One of the things that what I'd like to achieve here is bringing the network of individuals that are running these projects onto this platform to get their message out. You know, I'm one individual. There are countless others that are passionate about their projects, and using this conservation community platform to get the message out through these type of discussions is going to be so beneficial and build the network. And obviously, you know, if you build it, they will come. And I think that's what we're setting out to do. The foundations are in place. We're going to build a huge castle, and from that castle, we'll fill it with gold. And that gold will be used to support those projects.
Yes. It's fantastic. So I would like to thank you for all your time all over the planet, because actually for those that are jumping at the end of the show, we're both we're still on Thursday in Canada here, Toronto, but we are on Friday, so the future is now. Actually, there's a trick playing on you. On your left, you're tomorrow. On your right, you're yesterday, which means now. Am I here? Not, I don't know. But sure, you're watching. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned. Please like the Facebook page. Join the groups. Engage with us because you will see in the comments you have our handles. So I will be happy to become your friends on Facebook. The more we are, the better. And we will notify you when we're going live next. And you will also see the next shows will be planned on a long-term basis on the Facebook event. So everybody can register, use the replay, download the videos if they like, and show that in schools. You know, why not? Okay, guys, thank you for coming. Sandra, thank you for your time this evening.
My pleasure. It was an honor to meet you, Andy. You're doing fantastic things for this world, and it's just an absolute honor to hear about it.
Yeah, Andy. So you're not today in Canada. You're tomorrow. Thank you from coming back to the past, with a time machine. Thank you, Facebook. I would like to thank my producer, the crew, the sound, the music, the special effects. Okay, so next appointment maybe next week, for another Facebook Live with conservation community. That
great stuff. No problem.
Sounds great.
Take care.
Look forward to it. And you guys take care.